Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom, welcome back to today's Daf, which is Yoma Chaf Aleph. We're holding 6 lines from the top of the Amid. It says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Marav, B'sha'a she'Yisrael, Oilen l'regel. When Yisrael would go up to the Beis HaMikdash, Aliyah l'regel, Oimdin tzfufin. There were such large crowds that they would stand so crowded together. U'mishtachavim revachim. However, when it came time to bow down, there would be plenty of space for everybody. The area would just expand on them because Beis HaMikdash was a bubble of miraculous existence, and anything spiritual can contain unlimited capacity. Let's see Rashi inside. It's about 3-4 lines up from what we're holding in the Gemara. Rashi divar maschel tzfufim. Loshen tzaf. Rashi said tzfufim comes from the word tzaf, floating. Meroiva due to the large crowds, they would squish together. He can't turn to either side. And he's straight up like a beam. Nitalim me'al haaretz, and even his legs are lifted off the ground. So it would be crowded so close together, and some of them will be lifted off the ground, supported on both sides by the crowd. So that's how crowded it was, and still mishtachvim revachim, ukishem mishtachvim v'noiflim. When they bow down, and suddenly there's lots of space. To the extent that there's 4 amis between one person and the next. Whether Rashi means 4 amis space between people, or in total, a person would have 4 amis for himself. This is applied throughout the year, especially, says Rashi, on Yom Kippur. When the Kohen Gadol, during his vidui, would say the Shem of Hashem, Fnei Hashem, Titaru, everybody would bow down. And they would express their own remorse, their own vidui to Hashem. We want to give them their space, to allow for privacy, for discretion, so that one person doesn't overhear what the other fellow was saying. Hashem made this nace that there should be plenty of space, the ground stretched, and allowed for each person to have his own private space. Continues the Gemara. And they would actually spill over to the area, to the 11 Amma area, which was behind the Beis HaKaparis, Kachakadoshim. So in the Azara, we have the Heichel structure with the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and the Azara area actually surrounds that whole structure as well. So entering the Azara from east, from Mizrach, you have the Ezras Yisrael, Ezras Kehanim, the Mizbeach area. Then you have the Heichal Kodesh Kodashim structure, but the Azara actually surrounds that area. It wasn't really commonly used, but now when there were so many people, they would spill over into the areas beside and behind the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the 11 Amma between the Kodesh HaKadoshim wall and the Azara wall. V'nimshachan achas esrei Amma. That's how far the crowd would spill over. Says the Gemara, Maika Amar. What does he mean to say? And Rashi learns, on the one hand he's saying that when they bow, suddenly there's lots of space, lots of room. So why is it that they have to spill over to the area behind the Kodesh HaKadoshim? Why was that necessary? There was plenty of room in the area before, in front of the Heichel. Maika Amar. Hochik Amar. This is what he meant to say. Achas esrei Amma. Acharei HaKaparis. V'oimdim tzfufin. What he meant was that the crowds were so large and great that they would actually have to spill over to the area behind the Heichel, behind the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And even then, the area can barely contain everybody. They would be standing tzfufin, squished together, crowded together, as though they were floating, as we explained earlier. So although the whole area is completely stacked, completely full, When it came time for Hishtachavoya, which needed to be done facing the entrance of the Heichel, so everybody had to come back to the area in front of the Heichel. They can come back, there's plenty of space, and they can bow down, with each person having his own space. This was actually one of the 10 miracles that occurred in Beis HaMikdash. The Snan, as we learn in Mishnah Perkei Avos, which gives us a list of all 10. Asor Nisim Nasu Beis HaMikdash. The following 10 Nisim occurred regularly in the Beis HaMikdash. Lo yipila isha mireach b'sar HaKodesh. Generally speaking, when an isha is expecting and she smells some type of a smell, some scent coming from meat or whatever, and she has a desire for it, it's dangerous to withhold it from her. She can miscarry. In the Beis HaMikdash, this was a constant thing. There was a scent wafting about from the mizbeach, from the basar, which was kachim, and she couldn't partake in that. So perhaps she would have a desire which would endanger her. Hashem erenes lo yipila. An isha never miscarried as a result of the reach b'sar HaKodesh. That's number one. Number two, v'lo yisriach basar HaKodesh me'olam. It never happened that the basar of kachim, despite the fact that it sometimes would stick around for 2 days, kachim kalam could be eaten for 2 days and a night, and the heat of summer, no refrigeration. V'lo yisriach basar HaKodesh me'olam, never spoiled. V'lo yin'ira zvuv, never was a fly spotted in the area in the Azora where they would cut up the karbanis. That was a nice. V'lo yira keri, the Kohen Gadol b'Yom Kippurim. It never happened that a Kohen Gadol experienced a keri tumah on Yom Kippur, which would reflect badly on himself and on a Klal Yisrael, who he's serving, who he's representing. V'lo nimtza psul. It never happened that they found something wrong, but omer ub'shtei alechem ub'lechem apanim, in the grain used for the omer, or in the shtei alechem lechem apanim. As Rashi points out, this was very important because they wouldn't have a backup if something goes wrong with the omer shtei alechem lechem apanim. Why? Omer was cut the night before. They would only cut what they needed for the next day's mincha. If something goes wrong, there's no replacement. Shtei alechem, which is on Yom Tov, on Shavuos, if it becomes puzzle, we can't go ahead and bake new ones. Shtei alechem was meant to be baked before Yom Tov. The same thing with lechem apanim. Once Shabbos comes, if something goes wrong with this lechem apanim, it's a lost opportunity. So this was a nace, and nothing ever went wrong with him. Continues the Mishnah, oindim tzfufim, they would stand crowded, umishtachim rachem, and bow with plenty of space. V'lo yizik nochash v'akra b'Yerushalayim me'olam. It never happened that a snake or scorpion inflicted damage or harm in Yerushalayim. V'lo omar odom l'chaver, and one never turned to his friend and complained, Sar li hamokim, she'olam Yerushalayim, I can't stay over in Yerushalayim, it's too crowded, parnasa is difficult. It never happened. People were always comfortable, and Hashem provided parnasa for those dwellers of Yerushalayim who lived on a higher spiritual plane. Hashem provided for them. They had no parnasa concerns. Now, we realized that the last two pertain to Yerushalayim. The Mishnah began by saying, well, I have a list of 10 nisim which occurred in Beis HaMikdash. The last two were not Beis HaMikdash related. Pasach HaMikdash. So the Mishnah began 10 nisim in the Mikdash, V'sim Yerushalayim, concluded with 2 which were directed at Yerushalayim and not the Beis HaMikdash. So we're missing 2 from the list. Ika Tarti Achronaisa, B'Mikdash. We actually have 2 more that were not listed here, which occurred in the Mikdash, which will complete the list of 10 nisim. The Sanyim Ha'olam Loikavu Geshamim. Never happened that the fire on the Mizbeach would be extinguished by rains. Ma'olam Loikibu Geshamim. Eish Shel Atzem Harocha. That's number 1. Number 2, Va'ashan HaMarocha, the smoke rising from the Marocha, from the Mizbeach, would never disperse, despite the fact that there were great winds blowing. Afilu kol harucha sheba'olam, any wind in the world would not go ahead and disperse it. Boy, some nashas, boy would come and blow in there. Ein mezizes oisivim kaimid, it would not affect the smoke rising from the Mizbeach, which would remain in place. So we have another 2 nisim, which complete the list of 10 nisim in the Beis HaMikdash. B'suleka, There are no more nisim that occurred there. You only have 10 and no more. But Tani Rav Shmaya, big Kal Nevoy, in that place called Kal Nevoy, Shivrei Klei Cheres, Nivloim Bim Kaiman. Rashi explains, a earthenware kli which was used to cook achatos, for instance, needed to be broken apart on that day. You can't use it the next day. It's nicer. So it had to be broken apart. And where did we break it? In the Makam Kaddish. It's a pasuk. It has to be broken in the Azor. In the place where the carbon is eaten, that's where the kli used to cook that carbon was broken as well. Now, imagine everybody's breaking apart their klei cheres, and we have heaps of trash in the Azora, which was certainly unbefitting, unbecoming. There was a nace. Klei cheres nivloin. They would swallow into the ground and disappear. So this was another nace. Abai said further, Moira v'nuitza. So a oila sa'if would be burnt completely on the mizbech except for some specific parts which were taken out. An appropriate part, some of the insides, the moira v'nuitza, different parts of the oif would be separated and tossed away onto the floor. V'dishon mizbech hapnimi, the ashes which were cleaned off the mizbech hapnimi. V'dishon hamenorah, the spent wicks, the ashes from the menorah, all these items that were placed on the floor near the mizbeach were swallowed into the floor. Nivlam kaiman. So we have two more nisim, klei cheres being swallowed, and all these items of waste which were swallowed as well. So why is it only 10? We should really have 12. Says the Gemara, but if you pay attention to the Mishnah, we had a nes regarding oimer shtei alechem lechem apanim, which never became puzzle. Psuli, on the list of psulim, tlos ahavu. You actually gave us 3. But really, they should be converted into 1, because it's really one concept. Chashvinu b'chad, count them as 1. There was no psul occurring to any of these karbanis. So it's only 1, instead of 3. Now you have 2 spare. Apik trei, vial trei. Take out those 2. Instead of those 2, you thought there were 3. There were really only 1. Instead of those 2, va'ayel trei substituted for these 2. Klei cheres being absorbed in the ground, and the other items of waste absorbed as well. For a total of 10 nisim. Says the Gemara, according to you, we don't have 10 either. Yachi, if you're going to bundle together all the psulim, blue and nami, when it comes to these items swallowed in the ground, there as well. Bundle them together. Trei havu. You count them as 2, klei cheres and the other items, chashvinuk b'chad. Count them as 1. Because it's one concept. All these items of waste got swallowed in the ground. It's one item, 1 S. Chosrulu, so now you're down to 9. You're missing 1. You have another one to round off the number to 10. Domer Sheba Levi. Neis Godel. Hoya Nasa B'lechem Apanim. There was a great nes which was observed by Lechem Apanim. Silukai, when they removed the bread from the shulchan, it was just as warm and steaming, kisidure, as it when it was placed there. Shenamar losum lachem choim b'yamim lachim. On the day that you took it off, it was still choim, it was still warm and steaming. This is a nes, and this is the last item, the last nes, number 10 on the list. V'suleka, you have no more nesim that occurred in Beis Hamikdash. V'amar Rabbi Levi, davar zeh, the following thing, mesoires b'yadeinu avosenu. We have it as a tradition from our avos that makom arein einoi minamida. The place on which the arein rested, einoi minamida, wasn't counted into the floor space of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. It didn't take up any space. It says Rashi, 5 lines from the bottom, makom arein einoi minamida, einoi toifes lamait. It doesn't diminish any of the space. It doesn't take up any floor space. The Sanya, orange shasamash. Yeshloi eser amois aver kol ruach. If you measure from the orange to the wall, you have 10 amois. On this side, measure on that side to the wall, another 10 amois. Keshanita be'emtza beis hakaperes. although the Aron was placed in the middle of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, you still could measure 10 amis on either side, from Aron to wall. But the problem is, the entire area was only 20 by 20 amis. So how could it be that even after placing the Aron in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, which to begin with was only 20 by 20, you can count 10 from each side of the Aron to the wall? Apparently the Aron itself did not take up any space. Didn't take away any of the space, any of the halal. So that was an ace. Getting back to the Gemara, another nace. Kruvim. B'neis hayu aimdin. The kruvim here is in reference to the kruvim which were introduced by Shlomo HaMelech. So these were figures positioned on the floor alongside the Aron. Now, the pasuk describes them as having wings 5 amas in length. So each kruv had 5 amma wings. So 5 and 5 times 2 gives you 20. Now the entire area was only 20 amas wide, as we just said. So how could the Kodesh HaKadoshim contain 2 kruvim? Kodesh HaKadoshim was only 20 amas. Contains 2 figures. Each one has 2 wings, each wing being 5 amas in length. 5 is 20. What about the actual body of the figure, which was situated in between those wings? The kruvim b'neis hayu aimdin. They existed miraculously. They didn't take up any space. So we have 2 examples of nisim, which were constant nisim in the Beis HaMikdash, and why weren't they listed in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos? Says the Gemara, nisi de beroi kachashiv. We only refer to nisim which were outside and visible. Everybody could see those nisim. No fly in the Beis HaMikdash, fire of the Mizbeach not going out, was exterior nisim. Nisi de gavoy like a chashav. However, the nisim which took place inside, far from public view, that was not considered in this list. Certainly there were many nisim that occurred, but we're speaking about nisim which everybody saw and experienced. If that's the case, that we don't count nisim that wasn't visible, lechem aponim nami, nisi de gavayu. This nace, number 10, lechem aponim nace, the warmth and steaming bread, that wasn't seen outside. That was something hidden, betzina in the heichal. Says lechem aponim nisi de broihu. That also was a nace which was visible. Why? Da'a marish lakish. My dichsiv ala shulchan hator. Pasuk says he meant to place lechem aponim on the shulchan which is tor. Evidently, it can become tummy. If you need to warn against tumah. Mechlal shu tummy. Apparently, it has potential tumah. Really? How could a shulchan become tummy? Kli'eta asul nachasu. Rashi explains that any wooden utensil will carry potential tumah, will be mekabel tumah if it's not too large in size. It's mobile, it's portable. Because we compare it to a sack, and just as a sack can be transported filled or empty, a kli, in order for it to become tumah, it has to have that quality. It has to be portable. But if it's a large size kli, which can contain 40 sa'ah, like a mikveh, that's not called a kli, it's called a tank. It's meant to remain in place. It's a kli, it's a asal nachasu, and it's not makabel tumah. The shulchan was this large kli which can contain this huge amount of content. It was called a kli, it's asal nachasu. V'chol kli, it's asal nachas, ain't makabel tumah. Not only isn't makabel tumah on its own, v'choitzitz b'pnei tumah. It can pose a chatzitza. It can block tumah from spreading from one house to the other. So it's insulated and protected from tumah. So why does the pasuk say, put the lechem on the shulchan hator, make sure it's tor, not tumah? It can't be makabel tumah. Apparently, says the Gemara, Ella, you must say like this. The reason why it can have tumah is because it was moved around from time to time. El malamed shemagbin oisay le'il regal. It was meant to be picked up and displayed before the oil regal. They announced them, take a look at the warm, steaming bread. Ruchi baschem of ne'amakim. Look how dear you are to Hashem. Shesiluka kisidure. When the bread is removed after a week, it's still warm and fresh, just as when it was placed. Kisidure. Shenemar losum lechem chaim yami lokchay. When you take it off the table, it's still warm and fresh and steaming. This shows warmth. This shows a close connection, an ongoing relationship with Hashem. Hashem supplies us and is mashpia on us constantly, like a father to a son. So since the shulchan was meant to be picked up and displayed and moved around and transported, it can be makabel tumah. It's not called kli eitzah shel anachas. And that's why the Torah has to warn against tumah by the shulchan. Getting back to our discussion, the nes which occurred with lechem apanim on the shulchan was visible to all. It wasn't something hidden behind closed doors, like the nes with the aron, with the kruvim. This was something displayed and advertised for all to see. And that's why it belongs on the list of the 10 nisim in the Beis HaMikdash. V'suleka, there are no more nisim in the Beis HaMikdash. We have one more. V'amar Reisha, B'shah shebana Shlomo Beis HaMikdash. Shlomo Melech built the Beis HaMikdash, not a boy. He planted within it kol minei megadim, all types of golden fruit trees. Kol minei megadim shel zahav. V'yimotzin perisein bizmanam. Come their season, they would actually produce fruit, golden fruit. When the wind would come and blow, they would sway and fall off the tree. And the Gemara later tells us that the Gehanim actually used these golden fruit for parnasa. They would sell it and support themselves from it. Shenemar yirash kalavonin piryay. Lavonin, the whitener, is the reference to the Beis HaMikdash, which was malbin avon yusein shel Yisrael. It would clean Yisrael from the averis. So in the Beis HaMikdash there was this loud wind coming and rustling the fruit and shearing them off the trees. And the Goyim came into the Heichel to destroy Beis HaMikdash. Yavash, it dried up. It no longer produced fruit. Shenemar uferach levonon umlol. And the perach of the Beis HaMikdash was umlol, was umlol is lashon of sad, of inactive. It was no longer producing. So this umlol, this unfortunate perach of the Levonin will become rejuvenated eventually. Hashem will restore it. Shnemar paroyach tifrach v'sogel afkilas v'ronin kvod al-Levonin nitan lo. This is Lasid Lavai. Hashem is going to be machziron, restore these fruit, and it says kavod al-Levonin nitan lo. Hashem will give the kavod that was in the Levonin Beis HaMikdash and restore it, and will again parech tifrach will bud and produce. So we have another nice, the golden fruits which were produced in the Beis HaMikdash. So why wasn't that counted amongst the nisim Beis HaMikdash? Says what is the difference? Nisi de kvi like a chashiv. We didn't count for these nisim which were constant nisim, as opposed to those nisim mentioned earlier which were recurring nisim. Every week we had a lechem apanim. Every day there was a new fire on the mizbeach which wasn't put out by rain. So it had that element of chiddush and of excitement. We make a shachiyon of a kimano on Neiros Chanukah, etc., because it's a thing which is mischadish mizman lazman, has excitement. It's seasonal. It's recurring. So the point of the nisim discussed here is that we saw the constant, the chiddush of the nisim, the newness of the miracles which were happening over and over again, as opposed to nisim which were set in place, like these golden fruit and the golden tree growing just on a regular basis. There was something kavua and did not have that same element of chiddush and excitement. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, hashtal asalachi, now that you've come to this point, that we don't mention set and established nisim, we have another answer for the kasha. Or nekruvim nami. Nisi, the kviyaninu. At a kasha, what about the nes, the aron and the kruvim, which didn't take up any space? Those were constant nisim. It was just the way it was. The aron didn't take up space. It wasn't something which was being renewed on a regular basis, and therefore didn't belong on our list. Okay, so in summary, we listed several nisim, which happened in the Mikdash, happened in Yerushalayim. We have a list of 10 in the Mikdash. Lo yipila isha, she didn't miscarry. The basar of kasher didn't spoil. a fly was not spotted in the Beis HaMikdash. There was no carry to Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur. Despite the large crowds, they would have plenty of room to bow. We had the Omer Shtei Alechem L'Chapanim, which would never nifsal. The rains would not put out the fire of the Mizbeach. The Ashna Maracha would not be dispersed by strong winds. And we have several things which were nivla, mim kaiman, was swallowed in their space, in their place, the cheres, and etc. And we had the warmth, freshness, and steaming lechem apam. We had an additional 3 nisim which were there, but were set in place and not repetitive nisim. The makom aron, makom kruvim, which didn't take up any place, and the golden fruit tree, which would produce fruit in the Beis HaMikdash. We had another 2 which were in Yerushalayim. Lehizik nochash va'akrov, the snake and scorpion didn't inflict any damage, and a person would never complain. It's sarli amakim she'olim b'Yerushalayim. Continues the Gemara. Amar Mar, we mentioned va'ashan amarocha would not be dispersed by winds. Umi hava ashan amarocha. Was there then really smoke coming out of the Mizbeach? Vatanya. Chamisha dvarim nemru be'esh marocha. The following 5 things were applied and said to describe the Eish on the Mizbeach. 5 miraculous things. Number 1, Revutza Kari. The Eish on the Mizbeach appeared. It was figured like a crouched lion. This was a spiritual fire, and it appeared in that manner. Ubarak HaChamo. It had the brightness of the sun, unlike a typical fire which is cloudy and had lots of colors. It had that brightness of the sun. V'yesh ba mamash. Even the flame had some tangibility to it. It wasn't just a plain flame. It felt like something, like as if it was a coal. V'yichelas lachen kivation. Had the ability to consume moist matter, just as easy as it does dry matter. It would burn things on the mizbeach, fresh meat, etc. Ve'ena mala oshan, and would not produce any smoke. So there was no smoke at all. Kikamrina with the hedit. And the Mishnah Pirkei Avos says that the wind would not disperse the oshan coming from the mizbeach. He meant to know that there were 2 elements to that fire on the mizbeach. Number 1, there was the eish that came down on Hashemayim. That was spiritual matter, and that didn't produce any smoke. And then, in addition, they would add earthly fire as well. They have to add some fire in the mizbeach. The hedit, the common fire, and this fire, which was contributed by us, by the hedyotim, that assumed physical properties, and that produced smoke, but that smoke was not dispersed. The sanya, where do we find that we had to introduce our own fire as well? There's a mitzvah for the Bnei Aaron to add fire. Why is that needed? Even though there's fire coming down from heaven, mitzvah love min ahead is a mitzvah to add fire from our side of the world as well. I once heard a nice vert. Although there's siyata d'shmaya coming down from Hashem to help a person along, a person can't just say, well, I'll daven for help and go to sleep. A person has to do a shtalis, add his own personal effort to endeavor to grow in ruchnius and avodas Hashem, and then Hashem adds the eish min hashamayim, the fire, the enthusiasm which comes down from Shemayim to help him along. Continues the Gemara, Revutza Kari. So we describe the eish min hashamayim appearing like a crouched lion. V'hatanya, Omar Rabbi Chanina, Sigana Kehanim. Ani Ru'isiya, I actually saw that fire. Revutza Kekelav. It appeared like a crouched dog, not like a lion. Like Kasha, the answer is, it depends when. Kan b'migdash rishon, kan b'migdash sheni. During the time of the first Migdash, when Yisrael were on a higher level, the fire appeared like a lion. During the second Migdash, it only appeared like a kelev. Now, what is the significance? What's being symbolized here? Says the Ramah. Ramah actually has a sefer called Torah Sa'olah. He explains that the Mizbeach and the fire which descended on the Mizbeach denoted the hashpah coming down from Hashem to sustain Klal Yisrael, whether Ruchnis, Gashmias. Now, Hashem's Shefa comes down with great abundance. It's us who determine how much we're going to be Zeicha to receive. Says the Ramesh Isilis, during the first Beis HaMikdash, when they stood higher madregas, they accepted more hashpah. A lion, as we know, has no parnasa concern. He has plenty of food available. He's the king of the jungle. So during the first Beis HaMikdash, when they were tzaddikim, the hashpah came down in large amounts, shefa gadol, and the eish was in a lion's figure to denote the plentiful, the plenty and abundance of shefa and hashpah. When it comes to Mikdash Sheni, when they weren't on the same level, and the hashpah was mitigated somewhat, so then it appeared like a kelev. The Gemara Shabbos speaks about a kelev who Hashem has rachmanas on him because his food is scarce. He's always rummaging through the garbage. He doesn't have much food available. If the Gemara says that Hashem has rachmanas and it takes him 3 days to digest, so the little food that he gets lasts him for a while. So that's why the eish during Mikdash Sheni appeared like a kelev, denoting a lower level, a lower capacity of hashpah. Says the Gemara, Mikdash Sheni me'avoy? Was it even at all a heavenly fire present during Mikdash Sheni? Va'amar Shmuel bar Inya. My dichsiv. What does the pasuk mean? Ve'ertza boy ve'ikavd Amar Hashem. So it's spelled as ve'ikavd. So referring to the second Beis HaMikdash, Hashem says ve'ratza boy ve'ikavd. I'll be honored by it. It's spelled as though you read it without a hey, v'ikavd. V'karina v'ikavda. We really read it v'ikavda as though it's with a hey. So why was the hey sliced away? Why is it missing an hey? This is a remes. Hey is 5. Elu chamisha dvarim, referring to the 5 things which were missing during Mikdash Sheni. Elu chamisha dvarim shahayu bein Mikdash Rishon and Mikdash Sheni. The 5 things which were present, 5 miraculous phenomena which were present during the first Beis HaMikdash, which was a higher level of kedusha, and were not there during the second Beis HaMikdash. Eluhein. These are the 5 things. Aron v'kaparis v'kruvim, the aron and the lid and the kruvim next on top of it. So it's all one thing. It's all one package. Eish, the spiritual fire, the Eish Min HaShamayim, was only there during the first Beis HaMikdash and not during the second. U'shchina, of course, the second Beis HaMikdash had shchina. It means it doesn't have the same level of shchina as the first. V'ruach HaKodesh, this is referring to Nevuah, which was not there during the second Beis HaMikdash. V'urim v'tumim. So Rashi explains, it's referring to the parchment which contained the Shem Hashem, which was placed in the Choshen. So the Choshen was there, but not the Urim B'tumim. Tosfos disagrees. He says, you can't say it was missing, because then the Choshen is puzzled, and the Kohen is Mechusar B'gadim, he's missing the beged. He says, it was there, but it wasn't active. Meaning you couldn't ask your Shaila to the Urim B'tumim and get a response. So all the elements of the Choshen were present, but it didn't have the same effect. It was inactive. In any case, we have a list of 5 things which were present during Mikdash Rishon and not Mikdash Sheni, and one of them is fire. This ruchnistic of fire. So why is it that we say that the second Beis HaMikdash had it, but no low level, looked like a crouched kelev? It says in where Amri the Bnei Yeshiva responded, yeah, correct. Me'avahava. It certainly was there during second Beis HaMikdash as well. However, Siyui Messiah, it wouldn't really help out much. So it wouldn't help along with the consumption of the karbanis. For that we needed the Eish Shel Hedyot to work independently. It was there, but it was inactive. Tanu Rabban, Sheish Ishaysein. There are 6 types of fire in this world. Yesh Oicheles Ve'ena Shoyse. You have a fire which eats, but doesn't drink. It consumes solid, dry material, but it doesn't consume liquids. V'yesh, we have another one, shoysav enecheles. It drinks, it dries up liquids, but it doesn't affect solids. V'yesh, oicheles, v'shoysa. Eats and drinks. V'yesh, oicheles, lachan kivation. There's another fire that consumes moist material, like fresh meat, as easily as it does dry things, lachan kivation. We have another fire. V'yesh eish doicha. It negates, it pushes away eish. It cools off the other fire. V'yesh eish oicheles eish. Then we have the number 6, which is a fire that consumes other fires, overwhelms them. The Gemara will go through a list. Yesh eish. You have a fire which eats, it consumes dry, solid material, but doesn't consume liquids. Hadidan, referring to our fire, typical fire, which burns up dry and solids, but not liquids. Shoysa v'necheles, a fire that drinks, doesn't eat. Dechaylin, that's experienced by an ill person. He has a fever, which dries him up, makes him thirsty, but doesn't make him hungry. It doesn't affect the solid part of him, only the liquid side of him. Oicheles v'shoysa, we have a fire which eats and drinks. It consumes dry matter and liquid material. Delio, t'chsiv v'samayim asher betala lichacha. This is referring to Elionah and Har Carmel, when he had to face off against the Nevi Abal. They brought their animal, he brought his carbon, he sang it down to Hashem. Hashem showed them who's boss, and suddenly a Eish came down in Hashemayim, consumed everything, along with the water, in the ditch. V'samayim asher betala lichacha. So we see Hashem's fire can consume solid as it does liquid. Oicheles lachen kivation. We have a fire which consumes moist material like meat, just as easily as it does dry material. The maracha, fire in the mizbeach, which would consume the karbanis, consume the dry wood, also consume the meat of the karbanis. Yesh eish doichesh. We have a fire which negated other fire. The Gavriel. Gavriel, as we know, we learned in Psachim, is the Sar Haish. He's the source of all fire, and he came down to cool off the furnace for Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So this was a double nace. Not only the furnace cool off, but who cooled it off? The Malach of fire. As the more elaborates in Psachim of Kifet Ches, it was a nace b'seich nace, a double miracle. So here we have the Eish, which negates another fire. That's a very spiritual thing. We have a fire which consumes other fires, the Shechina. It's referring to Hashem's fire, the Amar. This was before Bria Sa'olam. Hashem conferred with the Malachim to create the world. They said, no, it's not Kedai. Why would you create a man with all his all his faults? Hashem didn't really like the response, so he extended, so to speak, his finger amongst the Malachim, who are made of fire, and the Sarfan burnt them up. So his fire overrode and overwhelmed their fire. Let's go back to the Eish Marach. We're going to the Pirkei Avos. Va'ashna Maracha, the smoke rising from the Mizbeach, afilu kol harucha sheba'olam ein mezizos oisim kamen. It's unaffected by any wind. Really? Smoke rising from the Mizbeach will not be swayed in either direction. Va'amar v'sabar avdimi b'moitzoi yontif ha'achan shel chag. Rashi explains, we're speaking about Sukkot, Chag of Sukkot, where the Gemara tells us, B'chag nidoinin alamayim, that was a time when Hashem issues his verdict, his psak din, regarding next year's water supply, next year's rain season, a dry season, a wet season. That's going to be decided on Sukkot. So Motzoi Yom Tov Achan Shechag, Motzoi Yom Tov Sukkot, Hakol Tzoifen L'Oshna Marocha. All would take a look at the smoke rising from the Mizbeach. Basically, this was an anemometer. This will tell them in which direction the wind is blowing at that point, which would serve as a sort of simon, as an omen for things to come. Because we've just gotten the psak din regarding next year's season, next year's weather, and the way the wind would blow at that point was indicative of things to come. So everybody takes a look at the Ashana Marach and see which way it's going. Noite klapit tzafin. If it's leaning towards tzafin, which means which wind is blowing, the Durham wind, so it's blowing the Ashan towards tzafin, that's good for poor people, because that would indicate a rainy season, a wet winter. Anim smechem, poor people will be very happy. Bal bata matzevim. So the Aniyim, when they saw that, was smechem, very happy. But the Baal Batim, the owners, the farmers, the dealers, weren't too happy. Because this would indicate it's going to be a rainy season, an abundance of rain. Rain means moisture, in which case they can't hoard, they can't store much of their produce too long, and They have to sell it off. Lots of produce, price is cheap, so it's good for the aniyim and not for the ashir. Noto klape darm, they see the smoke leaning towards darim, which indicates that the ruach tzfainis is blowing. That would have the opposite effect. That denotes a dry winter. Aniyim atzevim. Now the poor people were sad. Ubalibat mesmeichem, and the dealers, the owners, will be pretty happy. Because this would indicate we would have a rather dry rain season, which would allow them to hoard and store their produce and hike the prices. So it's good for them, but not good for them. No, they see the smoke leaning towards the east, which indicates a westerly wind. Hakol smeichem, everybody's satisfied. The ruach maravis was pleasant and well balanced, not too much rain, not too dry, perfect for everybody. Klapi marav, if the smoke was leaning towards marav, which indicates a wind coming from mizrach, which dries things up and brings about famine. Hakol atzevin, everybody's sad, it's no good for everybody. Apparently, the Oshan Hamaracha would sway and would be affected by the wind, which contravenes our Mishnah. And no wind could affect the Oshan Hamaracha. And says the Gemara, the Ozil v'Osik, it would sway to and fro like a palm tree. V'ivduri, like have a nivdar, but it wouldn't disperse. Dispersion, lo have a nivdar, that wouldn't happen. So it would stay consistently in a sort of a line, but would sway back and forth like a tree. So the nest was that it wouldn't disperse. The fact is, it would still lean in some sort of direction, which would provide a siman regarding the upcoming season. Arma, let's go back. Klape mizrach hakol smeichem. When it's leaning towards mizrach, in which case the ruach ma'aravis is blowing, everybody's okay, because ruach ma'aravis was a well-balanced wind. Klape marav, but if it's leaning towards the marav, in which case the mizrach is blowing, that's no good. It's drying wind. Hakol atzevin. Everybody was displeased. So we see mizrach dries up, and marav is perfect. Viraminu, of a brisa which tells us the other way around. My mizrach is lo'ilam yafa. The mizrach is perfect. Marav is lo'ilam kasha. Marav is never good. So we have it the other way around. And the brisa continues. Ruach tzfainis, the tzafin wind, is good, but it depends for what. Yafa lechitin b'shah shiviu shlish. It's perfect for growing wheat when they've already arrived at a third of their growth. At that point, the ruach tzfainis enables further growth and is beneficial to that wheat. V'kashel is, but it's harmful for the olives bizman shehin chotin, when they already reached the stage of chanat, already began to grow and to bud. So the tzfainis is good for the chita. Ruach draimus, on the other hand, is kashel chita. B'shah sheviu shlish, it's detrimental for the wheat once they've arrived at a third of their growth. V'yafel azeisim is mashen choitim, but it's good for the olives. So again, tzafin is good for the wheat, and dorim is good for the olives. Rav Yosef, I'll give you a simon to remember which is which. V'yiteimu of mazrutra, some say with mazrutra, v'simanach. If you want to have a good simon for this, remember that shulchan b'dorim, u'menorah b'tzafin. The shulchan was positioned on the tzafin of the heichel. Menorah was in dorim. Now, what was placed on the shulchan? Lechem apanim, which was grain material, chitin, which tells you that the ruach tzfainis was good for the chitin. Menorah was placed b'dorim. What was the menorah used for? To burn the olive oil, zeisim. So zeisim benefit from the ruach draimus. Hai marbe didei, hai marbe didei. The ruach tzfainis marbe nourishes and enhances didei, the grain which is connected to tzafin, because the shulchan had grain and it was tzafin. Hai marbe didei, and the ruach draimus allows for proper growth of its thing. What's the thing that's connected to darim? That's the zeisim placed on the menorah, which was on darim. Some explain it a bit further that the menorah and the shulchan had a spiritual effect, had a bracha effect, a corresponding effect on those things which they serve, which was put on the shulchan and the menorah. So the shulchan, since it contained lechem apanim, it created a bracha on grain coming from the tzafin, because the shulchan was b'tzafin, and the menorah on which they burnt the olive oil. It reached out to the olives, it spread bracha to the olives, and that's why the ruach coming from that side, the menorah side, the Durham side, was beneficial for the Zayis. In any case, what pertains to us is, we have a stira. Earlier we said Mizrach wind is no good, it dries things up and brings about famine. Marav is perfectly fine and balanced. Then we see just the other way around. Mizrach is great, Marav is no good. Like Kash, the answer is, depends where you're holding. Depends regarding which place of the world. Halon valahu. This brayse that said that Mizrach is good because it dries things up, it applies to us. Us meaning the Bnei Bavel, who in this geographic location were surrounded with waters and moisture, in which case we can use a little dryness. That's actually beneficial. Whereas the Maravis, which brought about moisture, that wasn't good for us, in Bnei Bavel. But in Eretz Yisrael, halahu, the early discussion was pertaining to Bnei Yisrael, which was a land situated upon mountains and valleys, so it was a wind-blown area. And over there, too much dryness dries things up. So Mizrach was harmful, and Marav was beneficial. Hadron Lach Shivasam. Okay, let's do a quick chazar of today's daf. We started with the Yisrael who Eilu L'Regel experienced a great nace, although they were standing cramped. When it came time for Shtachavoya, they had plenty of space, and Rashi points out that they needed that space so that they could have some confidential space for the vidoy that they wanted to say. Then we proceeded to the nisim that occurred in Beis Hamikdash, in Yerushalayim, and we concluded as follows. We have 10 nisim which were visible, which were known to all, nisi de Beroi, and also they were repetitive nisim. They had a dvar chiddush to them, constantly happening, and they created chiddush and excitement. What were they? An isha would not miscarry from the basar wouldn't spoil, a zvuv would not seen there, carry would not occur, they would bow with plenty of space, the omer sh'te'alechem l'champan would never nifsal, the rains would not put out the fire in the mizbeach, nor would the winds sway and disperse the ashen maracha, the various items were swallowed in the ground of the azora, and the lechampan remained fresh, warm, and steaming throughout the week. And in fact, they displayed that to all of Yisrael to see their dearness to Hashem, their warmth and close relationship with Hashem. We learned that there were several additional nisim as well. There was the makim araim, makim kruvim, which did not take up any space, and there were these peris zav produced in the Beis Hamikdash, but these were constant nisim kfuim, although nisim but not listed in the previous list of 10 nisim. We have 2 nisim that occurred in Yerushalayim, and Nachash and Akrav would never inflict harm, and there was bracha in Yerushalayim. Nobody would ever complain. Lo amar tzalei amakim she'alin b'Yerushalayim. We learned about the various fires that were present in the Mizbeach. There was the Eish min HaShamayim, the spiritual fire which came down, which was present and appeared like a lion during the first Beis Hamikdash, which was present and appeared like a kelev in the second Beis Hamikdash. That Eish would never produce any fire, any smoke. It was the other fire, min HaHedyet, which had to be added, and that produced Asham. However, the Gemara tells us that the Eish on the Mizbeach had the ability to burn through moist as it did dry. The Gemara concluded that the Asham would stay straight and consistent, but sometimes would sway back and forth depending on the winds. In fact, that was used as an indicator as to the rain season for the upcoming winter. Hatzlacha Rabba and kol tov to you.